Hello, and welcome back to U.S. News Today. I'm your host, Simon Kerr. Today, I will be giving you all the updates you need to know to be an informed American. For our first segment, we will be covering the tragedy that swept the nation throughout the 1930s, the Great Depression. Black Tuesday, October 29th, 1929. Wall Street collapses into nothing but a pile of rubble. Not literally, of course. Anyway, $16 billion disappeared into thin air and left the citizens of this great country with nothing. Years of over-speculation and the use of money that no one truly had led to economic disaster. Suddenly, millions were unemployed and struggling to make ends meet.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
As the Depression continued to grow, a large income gap began to form between the rich and the poor. While companies lost profits, wages dropped drastically, and workers faced extreme poverty. 60% of all the income in the U.S. during this time was owned by 2% of the population, with another 12% being owned by the poorest. 1/2 of American families lived below the poverty line during the Great Depression, with thousands more not far from it. As if it couldn't get any worse, America's tragedy soon turned into the world's tragedy. The U.S. had become the base of the global economy, and now was the face of global disaster. Demand for American products plummeted as European nations began passing tariffs to save themselves. Britain and France were still recovering from the damages left from World War I, and Germany was in shambles. The only thing that had been keeping the German economy afloat was financial support from America, which could no longer be provided. Our crisis took the whole world down with it. Now, let's take a stroll down the road to recovery. This show is brought to you by programs like the NIRA and the National Recovery Administration, which kept the business world of this country afloat. This 1933 New Deal promo shows you just what was at the heart of the New Deal programs such as these.
You've got a president now. He gave the land a new deal. You hold the cards, now you deal. You and you put shoulders to the plow. He gave us what we asked for, now pay him back somehow. Step out in front, get back of the president, and give a man a job. He bore the brunt, now bear with the president, and give a man a job. If the old name of Roosevelt makes the old heart throb, you take this message straight from the president and give a man a job. You look like a banker who drives your car.
I drive it myself, have a cigar.
Keep your cigar and hire a chauffeur, and keep a man from becoming a loafer. You look like a grocer.
No, sir, my job's extermination.
You must give your assistants each a nice weekend vacation.
And I'll need more men to kill the rats.
We want you to hire a crowd. You'll do good work if you hang out this sign that means no rats allowed. What's the matter with you?
I'm a very sick woman.
Oh, a hypochondriac. You must get a doctor for pneumonia, a doctor for insomnia, 1 for osmosis and 2 for halitosis, 1 for anemia and 1 for eczema, neuritis, bronchitis, phlebitis, St. or any other kind of an itis that will delight us. You must get a doctor for every disease you got. And that way it'll give you lots of enjoyment. And in that That way, madam, you will help to end unemployment. Now listen to me, everybody. Step out in front. Get back at the president and give a man a job. You know he bore the brunt. You know that. I know it. So step out and give a man a job. You know who's in back of this in the NRA? No? Well, I'll tell you. And when I do, it'll give you heart of trouble. You take this message straight from the president and give a man a job.
Well, doesn't that make you want to support the NIRA? Business owners and workers alike didn't have to struggle any longer. The NIRA and the NRA were just a few of many wonderful New Deal solutions created by Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
As the Great Depression waged on, Harry Hopkins created the WPA, also known as the Works Progress Administration. Although this program employed millions of Americans, it was only a small part of President Roosevelt's New Deal plan. By the time this program was disbanded, it had employed a total of approximately 8.5 million workers. It is said that this program was created to simply aid in ending the Great Depression that had swept the nation with unemployment, but many speculated that it had been used for political motives. Many were suspicious of Roosevelt's Democrats' motives and reasoning for the distribution of relief funds around the country. So let's investigate the facts, shall we? The government did not distribute the public works relief funds equally, but instead gave the West 75% more in federal funds than the poor South. Many people thought this was because the Democrats were sure that the South would support them and therefore were attempting to win over the West. This was the main controversy amongst this program. Although this claim was never proved, many assumed that it was true. Along with this controversy, many other Americans were concerned and angry about the workers that were hired by the Works Progress Administration. Many people were upset because they thought that the people who were hired had little to no work ethic and that the WPA hired undeserving individuals. Others also complained that those who were hired began to develop poor work habits. Even though the WPA was surrounded by this controversy, in hindsight, there were many positive aspects to the program. For one, the WPA employed millions of Americans during the Great Depression, and although the men who were hired were said to be unskilled, 4,000 new schools were built, 130 hospitals were constructed, and 280,000 miles of roads were repaired and paved, and more. Overall, this was a successful program that aided in helping the United States climb out of the Depression.
Our next segment will look back into the chilling past of World War II. After several years of fighting had passed and the French had surrendered, only Britain was left to fight Hitler's power in Europe. In late summer 1940, the first ever all-air battle took place over Britain, known simply as the Battle of Britain. Real creative. Luftwaffe, commander of Germany's troops, failed to gain power over Britain's Royal Air Force in the end, but the journey to get there was a costly one. Over 3 months, Britain suffered major bombings by the Germans on air bases, military stations, and even on its civilians. But Britain's top-rated air force was able to best Germany's, leading to Hitler's suspension of the battle and saving Britain from future advances on their country.
Welcome, Prime Minister Churchill. How are you today?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. Now let's just jump straight into it, shall we?
Small request. Can we hop, not jump?
Of course, Churchill.
Thank you.
So, my first question. Over the course of World War II, you managed to bring your country, England, from near destruction to victory. What, in your mind, was the main reason for this?
I think in my mind, I'm going to be honest, I always have kept a very positive outlook, and I always have been like, I'm never going to have any defeat in my life. And whenever I fought, I would send my army. I would say, I would never fight, of course, because I'm Winston Churchill. But I would send my army, and I'd be like, you got this. And I'd always have a positive outlook. I always was like, Germany is, excuse my language, but. And I always thought I would fight them and win. And then when I finally did, it was just very rewarding.
All right.
Thank you.
How do you believe your childhood helped shape your leadership skills?
Yes, my childhood was very interesting. My childhood, I come from a long line of English aristocratic politicians, and basically, my father, Lord Randolph Churchill, you might know him. He came from the first Duke of Marlborough. And he's in Tory politics very well known. My mom, Jenny Jerome, my mom, I love her. She died. RIP. Was an American heiress, and my father, her father, my grandpa, he was a stock spectator in the New York Times, and well, you know, my rich American mother would marry high politicians like my father, and they of course had me, who became even better than both of them, more famous, better in all ways possible. And I think coming from this very well-known, very well-respected family, it really pushed me to become the politician I am, and that I have shown the world that I can be. My father was an alcoholic. RIP. I feel like alcohol is just so fundamental to the family life. Whenever my parents would drink a lot, and it just really showed up in the household. My poor sister.
Are you okay, Mr. Churchill?
I am. I'm very good.
Okay, so Mr. Churchill, tell us about your time in South Africa.
Yes. When I was in South Africa, I needed my life. I said, spare life, please. I'm sorry. I'll take it serious. My bad. Yes, while I was in South Africa, I was captured by the army, and it was a really hard time, and I ended up writing 5 novels. Do you know what a novel is? It's a book. I'm sorry, Americans are a little stupid. Well, I actually, after the Second World War, I won the Nobel Peace Prize for Literature in 1953. And actually, I wrote 20 other stories as well. But I think I wrote those 5 books because I was so inspired by the Africans and being captured by them. And then I was knighted by Queen Elizabeth. Did I tell you that?
Mr. Churchill, can you tell us about your escape?
I died.
No. Your escape from being captured.
Yes, I can't. Oh, yes. It's a kind of daring escape. I was in the bathroom, okay? And I was using it. I was using the loo, and I saw the window, and I was like, it's open, and I was like, I can get out, I think. And I went out through the window, and I escaped. And I went up to Britain, and I said, oh, I'm a hero. I'm a famous hero.
Can you repeat that last sentence for us?
I said, I'm a famous hero.
Your favorite cereal?
Famous hero.
Famous hero. Oh. Okay, sorry. It was hard for me to understand over your thick accent.
My thick accent? No, I think it's not that thick. I think it's relatively weak. Sometimes I heard that I'm very Australian. Can I do an Australian accent?
No, Mr. Churchill. Please just speak in your native accent.
Thank you. I will. Thank you.
So, Mr. Churchill, tell us about your progressive reforms.
Yes, if you know what a progressive reform is, I did a lot of those. I worked on the passive social reforms in Great Britain, and I remember I was government mandated minimum wage, which had helped many poor people because they had to get this amount, and I really loved that. State-run labour exchange for unemployment workers, and I really wanted public health because I know health insurance is so important, and America still doesn't have that. And I think what year is it?
Oh, this year is 2019.
Oh, crazy. I died way before this. America still does not have health insurance, so I think it was so important. I put it in a long time ago, and you know how good that worked for us. Except Brexit. I heard about that. It's a shame. We have before us many long months of struggle and suffering. You ask, what is our policy? I can say it is a wage war by sea, land and air, with all of our might, with all of the strength God can give us, to wage war against monstrous tyranny, never surpassed in the dark, lamentable catalogue of human crime. That is our policy. You ask, what is our aim? I can answer in one word. It is victory. Victory at all costs. Victory in spite of all terror. Victory, however long and hard the road may be. For without victory, there is no survival.
Thank
That
you.
was really good timing.
During the first few years of World War II, the U.S. continued its policy of isolationism that had been reinvigorated following the terror of World War I. Neutrality acts had been passed by America to distance themselves further from the conflict as tensions began to arise during the 1930s. Nearly 70% of people in the U.S. believed that entering the First World War had been a mistake, and many government officials shared this view. It seemed in the beginning as though America was going to avoid foreign entanglement this time around. But the U.S. would soon be forced into conflict, and the country was not prepared for it. In December of 1941, the U.S. believed it was safe, thousands of miles away from the atrocities of World War II. And because of this, the U.S. naval base Pearl Harbor was left without defenses and was easily accessible to the new world power Japan had grown into over the last decade. On December 7, 1941, hundreds of fighter planes flew from Japan 4,000 miles to Hawaii, where Pearl Harbor was located, and began raining down bombs and bullets over the naval base. In less than 2 hours, these bombing caused significant damage on every battleship the U.S. had docked in Pearl Harbor, 2 of them suffering from irreparable damage. But more importantly, this attack by Japan cost the lives of 2,400 Americans, as well as another 1,000 injured. This was the wake-up call that made the American people realize that there was no way to stay isolationist in World War II. President Franklin D. Roosevelt immediately addressed Congress about the need for the United States to go to war with Japan, and the next day, December 8, 1941, Congress accepted FDR's declaration and America was now actively participating in World War II. Just days later, Japan's allies, Germany and Italy, declared war on the United States as a response, which was later reciprocated by Congress. Everyone had believed that World War I was the Great War to end all wars, but the U.S. had no idea what was still to come when they entered World War II.
Don't you really feel terrific now that we have had DJ? I don't want to change the subject, but did you buy that bond today? Got your car and toaster ordered, glad you took time out to pray. I don't want to change the subject, but did you buy that bond today? Aren't you excited about the good news over there? And won't you feel delighted knowing you're doing your share? Isn't it the grandest feeling, living in the USA? With victory here, we all can cheer. Let's all sing hooray! Hooray! I don't want to change the subject, but did you buy a bond today?
Now, fast forward about 4 years. Fast forward! That's your cue. To the final moments of World War II. In April and May of 1945, the Soviet Union staged a series of attacks on Berlin, the heart of Nazi Germany. The Red Army circled Berlin after forcing their way through Germany from the east, south, and north, and began shelling the city center. Ironically enough, this started on April 20th, 1945, Hitler's birthday. During this battle, Hitler and other leaders of the Nazi Party realized the pressure being put on them by approaching troops was too great and decided that taking their own lives was their only way out. The most intense areas of the battle continued fighting until May 2nd. Officially ending all conflict on May 8th was an unconditional surrender of German troops, which also marked the end of World War II in Europe. Although fighting may have stopped in Europe, World War II still raged on around the world. Following the bombing of Pearl Harbor, tensions had arisen between the United States and Japan. But now these tensions had come to their breaking point. Japan continued fighting around the Pacific, even after Germany had been creating and perfecting for the last 5 years the instrument that would later cause the destruction of Japan. This weapon was the atomic bomb. On August 6, 1945, the United States drops the world's first atomic bomb. The world's first atomic bomb. Assistant! Onto the Japanese city of Hiroshima, wiping out nearly 5 square miles of the city and killing thousands of people. Never before had the world seen warfare like this nature. But this was not enough to dishearten the Japanese, and no surrender was made. Then, on August 9th, 1945, the second bomb was dropped on the city of Nagasaki. Again, thousands were killed, and finally, this was enough to make the Japanese surrender, and the end of the war was 6 days later, August 15th, 1945.